When my daughter-in-law threw a glass of wine in my face, I saw not just betrayal, but the end of the illusion of family harmony. She considered the house her trophy, but I, betrayed by my son and his wife, sold it in a matter of weeks, took everything, and never returned. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I straightened my tie in the car window before walking to the front door, checking that the knot sat properly centered. The leather document folder felt substantial under my arm, and the velvet jewelry box pressed against my chest through my jacket pocket. Everything had to be perfect for this moment. I'd rehearsed my speech during the drive from my place, imagining Logan's face when I announced what I had decided. This house, this beautiful Spanish villa in Coral Gables, would officially become his. Violet opened the door before I could ring the bell. Albert, right on time. Her smile pulled tight across her teeth, not quite reaching her eyes. She wore a dress I didn't recognize. Dark blue, expensive looking with jewelry that caught the entryway light. Come in. I made your favorite dishes. Had she? I couldn't remember telling her what those were. The dining room table gleamed under the chandelier set with china I'd never seen before. New furniture crowded the space. A mahogany sideboard upholstered chairs with brass studs. I'd owned this house for 32 years. Inherited it from my parents who'd gotten it from my grandparents in 1960, and I barely recognized it anymore. Wine bottles stood open on the sideboard, labels facing out. French expensive. Dead. Logan emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He looked thinner than last month, his shoulders hunched forward. Thanks for coming. Of course I came. I set the document folder on the side table, keeping the jewelry box in my pocket for now. This is important. We sat. Violet poured wine into crystal glasses I'd never purchased, filling hers nearly to the rim. Logan's hands worried at his napkin, folding and refolding the corner. The first course appeared. She'd hired someone to cook, I realized, seeing the professional plating. More expense. I waited until she'd finished serving. The moment felt ceremonial, significant. I retrieved the document folder and placed it carefully on the table between us, smoothing the leather with my palm. Logan, Violet, I wanted tonight to be special. I opened the folder, revealing the property deed on top, my grandfather's signature still visible in faded blue ink at the bottom. This house has been in the Cooper family for 3 generations. My grandfather bought it in 1960 when Coral Gables was still developing. He paid $12,000 for it. Violet leaned forward, her eyes locked on the papers. He passed it to my parents who lived here for 40 years. They passed it to me. And now, I paused, wanting the words to carry proper weight. Now, I'm ready to pass it to you, Logan. Next week. I've arranged for a notary to make the transfer official. The house will be yours. Finally, Violet's voice cracked across the table like a whip. Do you know how long we've been waiting? 3 years, Albert. 3 years of our lives in limbo. I blinked, confused. Waiting. Violet, I don't understand. I'm giving you the house to live in, to raise your family in, live in. She laughed sharp and high. We don't want to live here. We want what's ours. I have buyers lined up. 2.1 million. We could finally start our real life, move to a better neighborhood, but you keep stringing us along with your sentimental garbage about family traditions. The room tilted slightly. Buyers. You want to sell it? Of course, we want to sell it. That's the whole point. She stood now, her chair scraping back. What did you think? That we'd waste our best years in this outdated house, in your outdated neighborhood, playing happy family? We need that money, Albert. We've earned it by putting up with your endless delays and your controlling. I'm not trying to control anyone. I kept my voice level the way I'd learned to do in court when proceedings turned heated. The house was meant as a home for family for generations. We don't care about your generations. Her hand slapped the table, rattling the crystal. I already found buyers who will pay 2.1 million. That's our ticket out. Our chance to actually build something. But you pathetic old manipulator, you think you can keep us hostage with your money. Logan stared at his plate. His knuckles had gone white around the napkin. Logan. I turned to my son, searching for recognition in his face. Did you know about this? About selling? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His eyes stayed fixed downward. Of course he knew. Violet grabbed her wine glass. He's my husband, but he's too weak to stand up to you. Too afraid of disappointing Daddy. Well, I'm not afraid. This is our house. We've earned it. The wine hit my face cold and sharp, red liquid splashing across my vision. It soaked into my white shirt, dripped from my chin onto the papers I'd laid so carefully on the table. The documents darkened at the edges, blooming with red stains. You pathetic old man, Violet hissed. You think you can control us with your money? This is our house. We earned it. I stood slowly. Wine dripped from my collar, pooling on my shirt. My hands moved deliberately. I set down my napkin, gathered the wine-stained documents, tucked them back into the folder. The velvet jewelry box remained in my pocket, ungiven. Logan hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, hadn't looked at me once. I walked to the door. Behind me, Violet's voice rose again. See, I told you your father never respected us. I told you he'd never let go. The front door closed behind me with a soft click. I walked to my car, each step measured. My hand trembled when I reached for the door handle, the first break in control, and I gripped it harder until the shaking stopped. Inside the car, I adjusted the rear-view mirror. The wine-stained shirt collar reflected back at me, dark and damning. I sat in that driveway for several minutes before starting the engine. The drive to Coconut Grove usually took 15 minutes. That night, I missed my exit, caught in some blank space between thinking and not thinking. A horn blared behind me when I corrected too slowly. My knuckles ached from gripping the steering wheel. At every red light, I looked down at the wine stain spreading across my chest, dark and sticky. My condo building rose against the night sky, modest compared to the Spanish villa. I'd moved here 3 years ago after retirement, wanting something simple, manageable. 2 bedrooms, balcony facing the ocean, rental furniture I'd never bothered to replace. The key stuck in the lock the way it always did, and I had to jiggle it twice before the door opened. I didn't turn on the lights immediately, just stood in the entryway, listening to the silence. After a moment, I walked to the bathroom and flipped the switch. The mirror showed me clearly. A 64-year-old man with gray hair. Wine splattered across his white shirt like evidence at a crime scene. I touched the stain, felt where it had dried stiff against the fabric, traced the edge of it with one finger. My reflection stared back. When had I gotten so old, I couldn't sleep? The wine had dried completely now, the shirt uncomfortable and tight. I should have changed it. Should have thrown it in the wash. But I didn't. Instead, I walked to the balcony and sat in the wicker chair I'd bought at a discount store. Below, the ocean moved in darkness. Waves I could hear, but not see. The wine stain felt like a brand. I kept touching it, confirming it was real. 3 years ago, Logan had come to my retirement party at the courthouse. 30 years on the bench, and they'd given me a plaque and a speech about justice and fairness. Logan had pulled me aside near the end, away from the others. Dad, I know this is asking a lot, but Violet and I hit some financial turbulence. Bad investment timing. Could we stay at the Coral Gables house temporarily? Just until we get back on our feet. 6 months, maybe a year. I'd said yes before he finished asking. Of course, son. That's what family does. Don't worry about rent. Just focus on getting stable. I'll keep handling the property taxes and insurance. He'd hugged me, thanked me, said I was saving them. 6 months became a year, became 2 years. I never asked when they'd leave because I didn't want them to. I liked knowing they were in the house my grandfather built, keeping the family legacy alive. Year 2. Logan called on a Tuesday. Dad, Violet has this amazing business opportunity. We just need $25,000 to get started. It's going to be huge. She's already got clients lined up. I wrote the check that afternoon, drove to the villa to hand it to him personally. He'd seemed nervous, shuffling his feet in the doorway. Violet had stayed in the back room, called out a thank you I barely heard. That was 2 years ago. The business never materialized. The money was never mentioned again. When I asked about it once casually, Logan had changed the subject to the weather. I reached up and touched the wine stain again. Still there. Last Thanksgiving, I'd asked if I should bring anything to dinner. Violet's voice on the phone had been matter-of-fact, almost kind. Elbert, you don't need to come for Thanksgiving this year. We're having some of our friends over. Younger crowd, you know. You'd probably be bored. Maybe we'll do Christmas. We didn't do Christmas. The sky began to pale, darkness shifting to gray. I went inside and retrieved the wine-stained documents from where I'd set them on the entry table, spread them across my small dining table, property deed, transfer forms, insurance records. I'd been paying $18,000 a year in property taxes, $4,500 in insurance, utilities, maintenance, 3 years of that plus the $25,000 loan, $115,000 roughly. And they'd already found buyers. $2.1 million, she'd said, already found them. While living rent-free in my house, spending my money on French wine and designer clothes and furniture I'd never approved. They were never grateful. They were waiting for me to be generous enough to let go completely, waiting for me to transfer ownership so they could cash out. 3 years of my life, and I was nothing more than an obstacle to their real estate transaction. Logan hadn't said a single word. Not when she threw the wine. Not when she called me a manipulator. Not when I walked out. He'd sat there staring at his plate, choosing her over me, without even the courage to admit what he was choosing. Dawn broke fully. I stood and walked back to the bathroom mirror. The wine stain on my collar looked almost black in the morning light. I studied my face again, the lines around my eyes, the gray in my hair. I'd spent 3 decades on the bench, weighing evidence, applying law, delivering justice. I knew the difference between mercy and being a fool. I had extended mercy. They saw weakness. I touched the wine stain one last time, then slowly unbuttoned the shirt, folded it carefully, precisely, the way I'd folded my judicial robes at the end of each day. I placed it in the bottom drawer of my dresser, evidence not to be discarded. Then I opened my laptop and sat down at the dining table. The wine-stained property documents spread before me like case files. Time to apply the law. The laptop screen glowed in the pre-dawn darkness. I opened a blank spreadsheet and titled items, a habit from my judicial days, when every case needed documentation, categorization, proof. The next 2 weeks passed in methodical analysis. My small dining table transformed into a workspace. Documents spread in organized piles, yellow legal pads covered in numbered lists. My laptop perpetually open to Florida property law websites. I worked the way I'd worked for 30 years on the bench, systematically, thoroughly, without emotion clouding judgment. First, the property documents. I examined every page. The original deed from 1960, my grandfather's signature in faded blue ink, the transfer to my parents in 1978, the transfer to me in 1993 after my father passed. Every single document carried one name, Cooper. My name, not Logan's, not Violet's, just mine. The property tax receipts told their own story. $18,000 per year for 3 years, $54,000 total, all paid from my retirement account. I found the insurance policies, my name, my payments, for $1,500 annually. Another $15,000 over 3 years. Utility bills all in my name, roughly $7,000 per year, $22,000 more. Then the loan. I located the canceled check, $25,000 memo line reading for Violet's business venture. I remembered Logan's voice on the phone that day, excited, promising it would be huge. The business never materialized. The money never came back, never even mentioned again. I entered each number into the spreadsheet, double-checking against receipts. The keyboard clicked steadily in the quiet condo. When the final calculation appeared, $15,000, I stared at it for a long moment. Then I saved the file and closed the laptop. The legal research took another 3 days. Florida Statute Section 835 was unambiguous. A property owner could terminate occupancy with 30 days written notice when no lease agreement existed. I read the statute 4 times, highlighted relevant passages, copied them into a document labeled Legal Framework. What kind of lease do you have with family? None. Because you trust them. Because you believe blood means something. By the second week, I had my strategy. I pulled out a yellow legal pad, the same kind I'd used for 30 years in chambers, and wrote at the top, 5 Plan. Step 1. Retain real estate attorney for expedited legal sale. Step 2. Remove all personal property and family heirlooms, before notification. Step 3. Secure buyer willing to accept standard closing timeline. Step 4. Serve legal 30-day notice to occupants. Step 5. Complete transaction and sever all contact permanently. I photographed the page with my phone, then circled Step 1. Below it, I wrote Marcus Webb with a question mark. Marcus had handled real estate cases in my courtroom years ago. Sharp, efficient, no tolerance for emotional complications. The hardest decision came on day 12. I opened my desk drawer and retrieved my current will. Single page, straightforward language. Logan Cooper, sole beneficiary. Retirement fund, $340,000. Investment portfolio, $280,000. Total, $620,000. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Diane Morrison's contact. My finger hovered over her name. Estate attorney, colleague for 2 decades, someone who knew my history. I pressed the button. Diane, it's Elbert Cooper. I need to revoke my current will and draft a new one. Complete removal of primary beneficiary. Her pause stretched long. Elbert, are you sure? Logan is your only son. Maybe you should wait until I'm certain. Can you fit me in this week? Friday afternoon. I'll be there. After hanging up, I sat motionless for several minutes. This wasn't anger. Anger fades. This was correction of error, the same process I'd applied countless times from the bench when reviewing cases built on false premises. Evening of the 14th day, I called Logan's number. It rang 4 times, went to voicemail. I hung up and dialed again. Voicemail, 3rd call, 4th call. Each rejection noted mentally like evidence accumulating. On the 5th attempt, he answered. Dad, look, I've been meaning to call. I need to collect some documents from the house. I'll be there Wednesday at 10 a.m. Please be home. Documents? What documents? Dad, I'm sorry about Violet. She was just upset. She didn't mean Wednesday, 10 a.m. I ended the call and set the phone down with deliberate care. The way I close case files after rendering final judgment. My hand didn't shake this time. The trembling from 2 weeks ago had vanished completely, replaced by something colder and more durable. I looked at my reflection in the darkened laptop screen. For 30 years, I'd maintained courtroom composure while delivering sentences that changed lives. I'd mastered the ability to speak with absolute authority, to make people understand through tone alone that discussion had ended and decision had been made. Logan heard it, that shift. 3 years of softness, patience, fatherly accommodation, erased in 8 words. He knew something fundamental had changed. Perfect. He should know. They both should. I opened my desk drawer and looked at the wine-stained shirt folded precisely where I'd placed it 2 weeks earlier. Evidence still preserved, not from sentimentality, but from principle. The stain had darkened to almost black, permanent. I closed the drawer and returned to my yellow legal pad. Next to Step 1, I wrote Marcus Webb, Monday 9 a.m., and underlined it twice. Monday morning, I dressed the way I used to dress for court. Pressed white shirt, navy tie, charcoal blazer. In the bathroom mirror, I straightened the knot until it sat perfectly centered. This wasn't casual business. This was professional engagement, and appearance mattered. I arranged documents in my briefcase by category: property deeds, tax receipts, utility bills. The canceled check for $25,000. The wine-stained leather folder from the dinner went on top. The stains had faded to brown but remained visible, a reminder of why I was doing this. Marcus Webb's office occupied the 3rd floor of a building in downtown Coral Gables, 10 minutes from the Spanish Villa. The waiting area featured modern furniture and walls lined with real estate law books, spines perfectly aligned, professional, organized, exactly what I needed. Marcus emerged from his office at 9 precisely, mid-40s, expensive suit, confident handshake. Judge Cooper, good to see you again. Retired judge, I corrected. And it's just Elbert now. His office overlooked Miracle Mile. I sat across from his desk and opened my briefcase, removing documents one by one. Property deed, tax receipts organized by year, insurance policies, utility statements, the canceled check. Each document placed deliberately, creating a visual map of evidence. I own a house in Coral Gables, I began, using the same tone I'd used for opening statements. My son and his wife have occupied it rent-free for 3 years. No lease agreement exists. It's family. 2 weeks ago, they made clear their intention to sell the property immediately upon transfer and split the proceeds. I've decided to sell it myself. Marcus leaned forward, examining the deed. Registered solely in your name. Correct. Inherited from my parents. No co-owners, no liens, no encumbrances. He reviewed the tax receipts, nodding. You've maintained all financial obligations. Every payment for 3 years. Property taxes, insurance, utilities. They've paid nothing. I slid the spreadsheet across his desk. Total financial contribution, $115,000. Marcus studied the numbers, then looked up. Mr. Cooper, legally, you're in an absolutely strong position. The house is yours. No lease agreement exists. I assume because it's family. Correct. No formal agreement. They asked to stay temporarily 3 years ago. I agreed. Then under Florida law, they're occupants without lease. You can sell the property at will. You're just obligated to provide 30 days written notice before they must vacate. The confirmation settled something in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, but validation. My research had been accurate. The law was on my side. I want this handled quietly, I said. No advanced warning. Find a buyer, close the deal, then notify them. Marcus tapped his pen against the desk. Understood. Typical closing takes 60 days. We'll need that time for title search, inspections, paperwork. You'll serve notice 30 days before closing. That's legally compliant and gives them minimal time to interfere. Your fee full representation through closing $8,500. Acceptable. When can we start? I'll draft the listing agreement today. We can have the property on market by week's end. He paused. One question. Personal property in the house. Furniture, belongings. Any concerns there? I'd anticipated this. Significant concerns. The house contains valuable pieces that belong to my parents. Antique dining set approximately $12,000. Rare book collection. Another $7,000 or $8,000. Paintings. My grandfather's stamp collection. I need to remove them before the sale. You have absolute right to remove personal property. But given the tension, I'd recommend doing it carefully. Perhaps hire professionals. Already planned. I'll handle it this week. We shook hands. I left his office with a signed representation agreement and a clear timeline. 60 days to closing. 30 days notice to occupants. 90 days total until I'd never see that house or them again. The next 2 days I spent preparing for Wednesday's visit. I made lists of every valuable item I could remember in the house, particularly in my old study. The room Logan and Violet had avoided because it contained old stuff. My grandmother's mahogany dining set with 8 chairs. My father's law library. First editions of landmark cases, paintings I'd inherited. That study held $30,000 in family heirlooms they'd ignored for 3 years. Wednesday morning arrived. I drove to Coral Gables, carrying a camera, tape measure, and my yellow legal pad. The driveway looked the same, but I felt different pulling into it. No nervousness, no anticipation, just cold purpose. Logan opened the door before I knocked. His eyes were shadowed, face drawn. Dad, thank you for coming. Listen, about last week. Violet was just she gets emotional about money. But she didn't mean not now, Logan. I'm here on business. Business? What business? Dad, can we just talk about? I brushed past him. Where's the key to the study? The study. It's unlocked, but why? I walked down the hall without answering. Violet's absence registered immediately. She was home. I could sense it, but staying in the bedroom, demonstrative contempt. She couldn't even bother to face me. The study looked exactly as I'd left it 3 years ago. Mahogany furniture gleaming, books lining 2 walls. Paintings hung precisely where my father had placed them. I set my camera on the desk and began systematically photographing each piece. Multiple angles, close-ups of McCaker's marks, measurements recorded on my legal pad. Logan appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? I didn't look up. Inventory of personal property. These items belong to me. I have every right to document my own possessions. But why now? What's going on? I'm clarifying ownership. I photographed the dining set, counting chairs, noting the carved legs. These pieces were never part of the house. They're my personal property. He shifted his weight, hands in pockets. You're not going to take all this stuff, are you? These things have always been here. They're part of the house. I stopped photographing and turned to face him. Made eye contact. Held it until he looked away. Logan, these pieces belong to my parents. My grandmother's dining set. My father's book collection. They were never part of the house structure. They're mine. I'll remove them when the time comes. When the time comes. What does that mean? Dad, you're scaring me. Good. I returned to photographing. He stood in the doorway another 5 minutes, then disappeared. I heard murmured voices from the bedroom. Him reporting to Violet, probably. I didn't care. The inventory took 90 minutes. Every piece documented, measured, cataloged. When finished, I walked to the front door. Logan materialized from the kitchen. Dad. I nodded once, acknowledgement, not warmth, and left. In my car, I pulled out my phone and searched. Antique appraisal Coral Gables. The top results showed 4.9 stars, 200 reviews, timeless treasures. Owner Ruth Castellaniano specializes in estate appraisals and furniture authentication. I composed an email. Ms. Castellano, I need professional appraisal of antique furniture and rare books at a property in Coral Gables. The items include early 20th century mahogany dining set, collection of first edition legal texts, and various estate pieces. I may also need assistance with careful removal and storage. Available next week. Elbert Cooper. I reread it, deleted my son, and his wife live there currently, and replaced it with nothing. Sent. Driving home, my phone pinged. Ruth's response. Mr. Cooper, I'd be happy to help with your appraisal. I can schedule a visit next week. Would Tuesday morning work for you? I pulled over and typed. Tuesday at 10 a.m. I'll coordinate with current occupants. Not my son. Occupants. I sent the message and merged back into traffic, heading toward Coconut Grove. Step 2 was progressing exactly as planned. The following Monday morning, I arrived at the Coral Gables house 10 minutes before Ruth. I told Logan this was a professional insurance appraisal. Plausible, unarming. He'd agreed nervously over the phone, promising he and Violet would stay out of the way. Ruth's SUV pulled into the driveway at exactly 10 o'clock. She stepped out wearing simple linen pants and a crisp white blouse. Silver hair pulled into an elegant low bun. She carried a leather tool case in one hand and a tablet in the other. Everything about her movements suggested quiet competence. No rushing, no hesitation. Logan opened the door before we reached it. Good morning. You must be the appraiser. He extended his hand. Ruth shook it briefly. Ruth Castellano. I'm here to assess estate pieces for Mr. Cooper. Professional, courteous, nothing more. Violet appeared behind Logan, dressed carefully in a way that suggested she'd spent time preparing. Hello, I'm Violet, Logan's wife. We live here. She smiled, extending her hand with exaggerated warmth. This is such a beautiful home, isn't it? Ruth's handshake was even briefer. Ruth Castellano. Then she turned to me. Shall we begin, Mr. Cooper? I'd like to examine the mahogany set first while the morning light is optimal. Violet's smile faltered. I led Ruth to the study, leaving Violet standing in the hallway, dismissed without rudeness, simply through professional focus. In the study, Ruth set down her case and pulled out white cotton gloves. She put them on before touching anything. The gesture struck me. Reverence for objects, respect for preservation. She ran her gloved hand along the dining table's edge, examining the carved details. Then she knelt, using her phone's flashlight to check underneath for MacAcre marks. Caribbean mahogany, she said quietly, her fingers tracing the wood grain. Hand-carved details, original finish. You can see the joinery technique here. 1920s craftsmanship. She pulled out a small jeweler's loupe, examining the carving more closely. Pre-revolution Cuban work. This is extraordinary. It was my grandmother's, I said. She brought it from Havana in 1959. Ruth looked up at me. Then it's not just valuable monetarily, it's irreplaceable. She photographed the set from multiple angles, made notes on her tablet. Current market value $15,000 to $18,000. Possibly more to the right collector. But I suspect you're not interested in selling. Not yet. She moved to the bookshelves, running her gloved finger along the spines. When she reached my father's legal collection, she paused, carefully removed a volume. First edition Blackstone's Commentaries, 1803. She opened it at the spine's natural breakpoint, photographed the title page. Remarkable condition. The binding is original. Sheep's leather. My father's prized piece. He had excellent taste. This is worth $3,000 minimum, possibly $5,000 to the right collector. She continued examining books, handling each with the same careful respect. Violet appeared in the doorway. So, how much is all this worth? Her voice had an edge, calculating. Just curious. Ruth didn't look up from the book. She was photographing. My report goes to Mr. Cooper. If he chooses to share details with you, that's his decision. Professional boundary established. Violet's mouth tightened. She disappeared again. For the next 2 hours, Ruth worked methodically. She examined paintings, measured furniture, photographed my grandfather's stamp collection. Every item documented with photographs, measurements, condition notes. At one point, I found myself alone with her in the study. Logan had retreated somewhere. Violet had given up hovering. Ruth paused, looked at me directly. Mr. Cooper, may I ask something? Her voice was gentle, but curious. Why are you having your own possessions appraised in what appears to be your own home? I hesitated. Something about her directness. Her lack of judgment made me answer honestly, because this is no longer my home. I'm going to take what belongs to me before I leave permanently. She held my gaze for 3 seconds, then nodded once. I understand. Do you? Yes, I do. No prying questions, no demands for explanation, just acceptance. Ruth returned to her tablet, made a few more notes. Then you'll need help removing these pieces. They're fragile, valuable, and based on the tension I'm sensing here, you'll want this done discreetly, quietly. Am I correct? Very. I have a professional team. We can do this in 1 day when the house is empty. Climate-controlled truck, proper equipment, secure storage. She looked at me if you trust me. I studied her face, the calm intelligence in her brown eyes, the steadiness of her posture. 3 years of manipulation had taught me to recognize genuine transparency. I saw it here. How much? $3,000 for removal in first month of climate-controlled storage. If you later choose to sell through my gallery, I take standard 20% commission. No pressure to sell. No hidden fees. She stated the terms without hesitation. Clear, direct. That works. Ruth nodded. I'll need a day's notice to arrange the crew. You let me know when. We moved to the living room to finish the assessment. When Ruth completed her work, she handed me her business card. Simple, elegant design. Timeless treasures. Ruth Castiano, estate appraisals and authentication. At the door, she paused. Mr. Cooper, I don't know your full story. I don't need to know, but I recognize someone protecting what rightfully belongs to them. That takes courage. Or stubbornness. She smiled slightly. Sometimes they're the same thing. After Ruth left, I drove back to my condo. That evening, an email arrived. I opened the attachment, a comprehensive PDF report, every item photographed, appraised with detailed condition notes and market values. Completely professional. Then I scrolled to the bottom. A handwritten note scanned. If you ever need someone to simply talk to, my door's open. I know how betrayal by loved ones hurts. I survived it. You will too, Ruth. I stared at that note for several minutes. Someone saw. Someone understood. For the first time in weeks, the cold determination inside me thawed slightly. Not weakness, just the recognition that I wasn't completely alone in this. I picked up my phone, started to type a response, then stopped, set the phone down, walked to my balcony overlooking the ocean. The waves moved in darkness below. Ruth's words echoed. I survived it. You will too. Maybe I would. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. Alberta, I have good news. Couple from Chicago, late 50s, looking for Florida retirement property. They love Spanish architecture. Offering $182 million. That's below market, I said, though I knew it didn't matter. By $30,000, yes, but they're waiving inspection, paying cash, willing to close in 60 days. Clean deal. I'll take it. Excellent. Come by tomorrow to sign. I'll prepare the official notice for Logan and Violet. They'll receive it Monday. I hung up and immediately called Ruth. Can your team move everything this Saturday before the notice is delivered? Absolutely. I'll arrange it. Then I dialed Logan. He answered on the third ring. Dad, I need to collect personal items from the house Saturday. I'll have a moving truck from 9 to 3. It would be easier if you weren't there. Personal items? What items? Dad, I don't understand. I heard movement, then Violet's voice cutting in. She grabbed the phone. You can't just come here and take our things. This is our home. Violet, they're my belongings from my house. You'll receive a detailed list. Saturday, 9:00 a.m. I ended the call before she could respond. Saturday morning arrived clear and warm. I reached the house at 8:45. Ruth's specialized moving truck turned onto the street at exactly 9, followed by her SUV. 3 men stepped out, all wearing matching uniforms. Professional movers, not day laborers. Ruth carried a clipboard. Logan opened the door. His face looked drawn. Violet stood behind him, arms crossed, dressed as if she were attending a business meeting. They decided to stay, to monitor, to control what they could. Good morning, Ruth said pleasantly. We'll work as quickly as possible to minimize disruption. She handed Logan a document. This is the inventory we'll be removing. Everything listed was previously documented and photographed as Mr. Cooper's personal property. Logan took it, hand shaking slightly. He scanned the pages. 3 sheets, single-spaced, photos attached. His mouth opened, closed. Ruth's crew began immediately. They moved with practiced efficiency. Furniture dollies, protective blankets, careful maneuvering. 1 man individually wrapped each leg of the mahogany dining chairs. Another used archival boxes for the rare books, placing acid-free tissue between volumes. Violet followed them, voice rising. That table has been here for years. It's part of the house. You can't just take it. Ruth turned to her, expression neutral. Ma'am, this furniture is documented as the property owner's personal belongings. Each piece was inherited from his parents. You have no legal claim. I'll call the police. Please do. Ruth's voice remained calm. I have complete documentation, signed inventory, and proper authorization. Officers will confirm we're operating legally. Violet didn't call. She continued following the movers instead, her protests becoming shriller as the truck filled. Logan stood in the hallway, statue still, watching his grandfather's furniture disappear. He looked at me once. I looked back. He turned away. The operation took 4 hours. Mahogany Dining said. Book collection, paintings, tools from the garage, photo albums I'd stored in a closet, my father's desk, everything on the list, nothing beyond it. When the last box was loaded, I approached Logan, held out a sealed envelope, complete inventory of everything removed. My parents' furniture, my personal books, my tools, my photographs, nothing that belonged to the house furnishings. He took it with both hands, opened it immediately, scanned the pages, looking for something to object to. Found nothing. Dad, why are you doing this? His voice cracked slightly. What are you planning? I looked at him directly. Logan, 3 weeks ago, your wife threw wine in my face at my own table. You sat there silent. You let it happen. That told me everything I need to know about where your loyalty lies. I was in shock. I didn't know what to. You had 3 weeks to call, to apologize, to take responsibility. You did nothing. That's also an answer. I turned toward my car. Behind me, Violet's voice rose to a shriek. We'll sue you. Our lawyer will tear you apart. You can't do this to us. I didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge her, got in my car, and followed Ruth's truck out of the driveway. We drove to her storage facility in Coral Gables. The crew unloaded everything into a climate-controlled unit. When finished, Ruth locked it and handed me the key. Come, she said quietly. Let me buy you coffee. You need to sit down. We drove to a small cafe in Coconut Grove, found a table on the terrace overlooking the bay. Ruth ordered for both of us. She seemed to sense I couldn't make even small decisions right now. When the coffee arrived, she reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. You handled that with remarkable composure. but I saw your face when Logan just stood there not defending you again. I looked at our joined hands. He's my only son, my only child, and I just fought a battle against him. No. Her grip tightened slightly. You fought for yourself against people who were using you. There's a distinction. A son protects his father when someone attacks. Logan hasn't been your son in a long time. The words hurt because they were true. I felt something crack in my chest. Not breaking, but opening. Doesn't make it hurt less. Of course it doesn't. You're allowed to grieve what you lost, but you're also allowed to survive, to protect yourself, to move forward. I looked up at her face. Why are you helping me? You barely know me. I know enough. I know what it looks like when someone refuses to be a victim. She paused, her thumb moving slightly against my hand. I spent 10 years rebuilding after my husband tried to destroy me in our divorce. I recognize that strength, and I recognize when someone deserves not to be alone in their fight. We sat in silence for a moment, her hand warm and steady over mine. For the first time since my wife died 5 years ago, I didn't feel completely alone. This wasn't just alliance anymore. It was connection, something neither of us had expected. Ruth's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, sighed. I should go client at 4. She squeezed my hand once more before releasing it. Call me this week, maybe dinner. I nodded. I'd like that. As she walked to her car, I watched her go, feeling something shift inside me. Not love. Not yet, but the possibility of it. My phone vibrated. Text from Marcus. Notice sent via courier. Logan will receive it tomorrow morning. Let me know if there are problems. I typed back, there won't be. Tomorrow Logan would learn the house was sold, that he had 30 days to leave. Tomorrow the final phase would begin, but tonight I had Ruth's warmth still lingering on my hand, and that made everything bearable. Monday morning, May 19th. I was making coffee when my phone rang. Marcus, it's delivered, he said. Courier confirmed signature at 10:03. Logan signed for it. I set down my cup. Thank you. Call me if there's trouble. There would be trouble. But it was the legal kind now, the kind I understood completely. The call came 40 minutes later. Violet first, naturally. My phone showed her name. I let it ring once, then declined. Immediate call back. Declined. Then a text, all capitals. You won't get away with this. We'll sue you. This is our house. I watched the message change to read, but didn't respond. 3 more calls from Violet over the next 10 minutes. Each declined before the first ring completed. Then Logan tried. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. On the 5th ring, I answered. Logan, Dad. His voice cracked with panic. What have you done? You can't sell the house. We live here. This is our home. Our entire life is here. I kept my voice level, almost pleasant. Logan, this is my house. It's always been my house. I had every legal right to sell it at any time. You've received proper 30-day notice. That's more than sufficient under Florida law. But where will we go? He was breathing hard, words tumbling out. We have nowhere, no plan. How can you do this to us? That should have been your question 3 years ago when you decided to live in my house rent-free. Or 1 year ago when you borrowed $25,000 and never mentioned repayment. Or 3 weeks ago when your wife threw wine in my face at my own dinner table because I wasn't transferring the deed fast enough. Silence. Then rustling, the phone changing hands. You pathetic, cruel old man. Violet's voice raw with rage. We wasted years of our lives in this house. Years taking care of it. Living in your shadow. You owe us something. You owe us this house. I smiled though she couldn't see it. Taking care of it. Violet. I paid every bill. Property taxes, $18,000 per year. Insurance, $4,500 per year. Utilities, approximately $7,000 per year for 3 years. That's over $115,000. You paid exactly 0. So no, I don't owe you anything. You have 30 days. I suggest you use them productively. I ended the call, opened my contacts, found Logan's name, pressed block this caller, then did the same for Violet. 2 taps. Years of manipulation ended. I placed the phone face down on my kitchen counter and returned to my coffee. The next few days brought exactly what I expected. Marcus kept me informed. Violet and Logan had consulted 2 attorneys, both of whom told them the same truth. No grounds for lawsuit, no leverage, no options. Elbert Cooper owned the property, gave proper notice, followed every statute. Clean. But Violet refused reality. She found Donald Kessler, an attorney whose website promised aggressive advocacy and creative legal solutions. Translation: someone willing to file frivolous suits for money. Kessler charged $5,000 upfront. They paid it, adding to their mounting financial crisis. Marcus called me Thursday evening. They filed an emergency injunction claiming oral contract detrimental reliance. It's weak, but a hearing set for June 9th. Will it delay closing? Potentially, if the judge grants a temporary hold pending full hearing. Our buyers are nervous. We'll handle it, I said. I know how to prepare for court. That same week, I saw Ruth almost daily. Coffee on Tuesday at a cafe overlooking the marina. Wednesday lunch at a small bistro in Coconut Grove. Thursday, we walked through Vizcaya Gardens talking about everything except the house sale her years rebuilding after divorce. My judicial career books, we'd read places we wanted to see. Friday evening after she closed her shop, we met at a waterfront restaurant. Sat on the terrace as the sun began its descent toward the bay, painting the water in shades of amber and rose. Ruth reached across the table, covered my hand with hers. The gesture was deliberate, gentle. I turned my palm up, receiving her touch. "Elbert, I don't know what's coming next for you," she said quietly. "The sale? What happens after where life takes you? But I want you to know something. You're not alone. Not anymore." My throat tightened. "Ruth, I mean it. Whatever you need. Someone to talk to. Someone to just sit with. Someone who understands what betrayal feels like. I'm here. I'll be here." I squeezed her hand, unable to speak for a moment. When I found my voice, it came out rough. "I know, and it means more than I can say." We sat in silence as the sun touched the horizon, her hand warm and steady in mine. For the first time since my wife died 5 years ago, I felt connected to another person. Not just alliance, not just gratitude, something deeper, something that felt like the possibility of a future I'd stopped imagining. Ruth's phone buzzed. She glanced at it reluctantly. I should go. Early appointment tomorrow, but neither of us moved immediately. Finally we stood. There was a moment, brief, charged, where a kiss might have happened, but it didn't. Too soon. Not yet, but the possibility hung between us like a promise. I drove home, feeling something like I hadn't felt in months. Not the cold determination that had sustained me through planning and execution. Something warmer. Peace, maybe. Or hope. My phone rang as I pulled into my building's parking garage. "Marcus, we have a situation." He said they filed that injunction. "Court hearing scheduled June 9th. We need to prepare our response." I parked, sat in the darkness for a moment. "I'll be ready." The battle wasn't over, but looking at Ruth's last text, "Thank you for tonight. Sleep well." I realized I had something worth fighting for beyond just justice. I had a reason to win, and then move forward. I spent the next week preparing like I was back on the bench, except this time I was building the case instead of judging it. Every bank statement showing house payments, every email exchange with Logan. I searched for any mention of transfer or ownership promise. Found nothing. Only language about staying temporarily and getting back on your feet. I drafted my affidavit myself, typing slowly but precisely. 30 years of reading sworn statements had taught me exactly what judges needed. Facts, dates, dollar amounts, no emotions, no editorializing, just the truth, documented and verifiable. Marcus notarized it in his office. "This is excellent work," he said, reviewing the exhibits I had organized. 6 months of payments, the unreturned loan, their complete lack of financial contribution. "It's overwhelming." "It's accurate," I corrected. "That makes it overwhelming." The buyers called Marcus twice that week, nervous about delays. He assured them the case was frivolous, would be dismissed quickly. I hoped he was right. June 9th arrived warm and clear. I dressed carefully, navy suit, white shirt, conservative tie, the uniform of professional credibility. I'd worn versions of this outfit for 3 decades in courtrooms. Today felt like coming full circle. Miami-Dade County Courthouse stood familiar and imposing. I walked through security, the metal detector beeping. The ritual is known to me as breathing. These hallways, these courtrooms, this was my world, just from a different angle now. Marcus waited outside courtroom 4B. Judge Morrison, I've appeared before her. Fair, efficient, doesn't tolerate nonsense. Good. We entered. The courtroom was small, designed for quick motions and hearings rather than trials. Violet and Logan sat at the plaintiff's table with Donald Kessler. Violet wore black, a dress I'd never seen. Hair pulled back severely. Minimal makeup, the costume of victimhood. Logan wore a suit that didn't fit properly. His face pale, his eyes avoiding mine. Judge Morrison entered. Mid-50s efficient movements, sharp eyes behind reading glasses. We stood. She sat. We sat. Emergency motion for injunction, she said, glancing at her notes. Mr. Kessler, you filed. You may proceed. Kessler stood, adjusted his tie. Your Honor, my clients are a young couple who lived in this home for 3 years with the owner's explicit verbal permission and repeated promises that the house would be theirs. They invested their lives, their time, their emotional energy into this property based on his assurances. Now, suddenly, without warning, objection. Marcus's voice was calm. The claim of without warning is factually incorrect. Plaintiffs received legal 30-day notice as required by Florida Statute Section 835. Judge Morrison looked at Kessler. Sustained. Mr. Kessler, stick to facts, please. Kessler adjusted again, continued. My clients relied on oral promises, made repeatedly, by Mr. Cooper. They had every reason to believe. Excuse me. Judge Morrison held up one hand. Do your clients have any written evidence of these alleged promises? Any emails, texts, letters? Kessler hesitated. Well, Your Honor, family agreements are often verbal. That's not what I asked. Do you have written evidence? Yes or no? No, but thank you, Mr. Webb, your response. Marcus stood, placed a thick folder on the podium. Your Honor, plaintiffs cannot produce written evidence because no such promises existed. Meanwhile, Mr. Cooper has provided 36 months of bank statements proving he paid all property taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance totaling over $115,000. Plaintiffs contributed zero. They lived rent-free for 3 years. This is not detrimental reliance. This is exploitation of generosity. Judge Morrison began flipping through the exhibits. Her expression grew progressively stern. Mr. Cooper, she said, addressing Logan directly. I have some questions. Do you have any written document, email, text message, letter where your father agreed to transfer this property to you? Logan stood awkwardly. No, Your Honor, but he said verbally that the house was for family. Did you pay rent to live in this house? No, but it's family. So, did you pay property taxes? No. Insurance premiums? No. Utility bills? Logan's voice dropped to barely audible. No. So, you lived completely free of charge for 3 years? A long pause. Yes. Judge Morrison removed her glasses, set them on the bench, looked at the exhibits again, looked at Kessler. I've reviewed the motion and the response. This case is straightforward. Her voice carried the weight of final judgment. Under Florida law, oral promises regarding real estate transfers have no legal effect without written contract. Florida Statute Section 725(1), Statute of Frauds. Mr. Elbert Cooper owned this property. He paid all expenses. He provided legal notice. He has the absolute right to sell it. This motion is denied. Plaintiffs must vacate the premises by June 15th as legally notified. She picked up her gavel. Court is adjourned. The strike of wood on wood echoed in the small room. Final. Irreversible. Violet made a sound. Strangled. Disbelieving. Logan's head dropped. Kessler tried to speak, but Judge Morrison had already stood and exited through her chamber's door. Outside in the courthouse plaza, Violet lost what remained of her control. She rushed at me, heels clicking rapidly on concrete. You destroyed us. She screamed. You destroyed your family. What kind of father does this? I stood still. Let her come. Let her rage wash past me. When she finished, I spoke quietly. No, Violet. You destroyed the family when you threw wine in my face in my own home. I simply corrected the mistake I made 3 years ago when I trusted you with my property. We gave you 3 years of our lives. I gave you $115,000, a home, and unconditional support. You gave me contempt. I'd say you got the better deal. Behind her, Logan approached slowly. His voice cracked. Dad, please. We have nowhere to go. No savings. What are we supposed to do? I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Saw the man who'd sat silent while his wife abused me. The man who'd taken everything and given nothing back. Logan, you had income for 3 years. Good income. If you hadn't spent every dollar living in a house worth $2 million rent-free, enjoying prestige you couldn't afford, you'd have savings. You made choices. Now you live with them. I turned toward the parking area. Goodbye, Logan. Not son, just his name. The relationship was already gone. Now the word was two. I walked to my car. Behind me, Logan called out something I didn't catch. Didn't turn. Got in my car, started the engine, drove away. In the rearview mirror, Logan standing on the courthouse steps, Violet screaming at him now, turning her fury on the only target left. I drove directly to Ruth's shop. She saw my face through the window, immediately flipped the sign to closed, and led me upstairs to her private office. She made tea, didn't ask questions, just waited. I won, I finally said. Complete victory. Judge didn't even hesitate. And I feel terrible. Ruth finished softly. Because he's your son, and you just had to beat him in court. I nodded, couldn't speak. She crossed to me, wrapped her arms around my shoulders. I let my head rest against her. Let the weight show. Listen to me, she said, her voice steady against my ear. You want a case against people who are exploiting you. A real son protects his father, defends him. Logan chose Violet's greed over your dignity every single time. He stopped being your son when he sat silent while she abused you. He's still my only child. I know. Her arms tightened. And you're allowed to grieve that. But you're also allowed to survive, to protect yourself, to move forward. We stood like that for a long time, her strength holding me up. Outside, afternoon light shifted toward evening. Eventually, she released me, wiped a tear from my cheek I hadn't known had fallen. Come, she said. I'm making you dinner. Real food. We're going to sit, eat, and talk about anything except your son and that house. I nodded, managed a small smile. As we walked to her car, my phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Buyers confirmed. Closing proceeds is scheduled. June 15th, 2 p.m. The end was in sight. But looking at Ruth walking beside me, unlocking her car, glancing back with concern and warmth, I realized something else. The beginning was in sight, too. June 15th arrived bright and cloudless. I met Marcus at his office by mid-morning. The closing ceremony was surprisingly mundane for something so significant. Papers spread across his conference table for people reviewing documents in careful silence. Richard and Margaretchen sat across from me, late 50s, excited about their Florida retirement, but maintaining professional composure. Their attorney checked contract clauses. The title company representative verified signatures. Marcus guided us through each page methodically. Initial here, sign here, date here. My signature appeared on page after page. The motion became automatic, almost meditative. Each stroke of the pen was a period ending a sentence, a door closing, a chapter finishing. The wire transfer confirmation appeared on Marcus' laptop screen. He turned it toward me. 1740,000 deposited to account ending in 7823. I nodded. Richard Chun reached across the table, extended his hand. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. We'll take excellent care of it. I shook his hand. I'm sure you will. Marcus placed the keys in a small envelope, slid them across the mahogany surface. Margaret picked them up, smiled. Something in her expression, pure joy, uncomplicated anticipation, reminded me why houses should be homes, not weapons. That afternoon, Miami-Dade County Sheriff deputies knocked on the door at the Coral Gables villa. I wasn't there, but Marcus called to tell me. Logan had answered. Deputy Martinez, according to Marcus' contact at the sheriff's office, had read from the official eviction notice in the flat tone of someone who delivered hundreds of these. "You have 24 hours to vacate these premises," Violet had screamed. The deputies had waited impassively until she finished, then left. Standard procedure. The next morning, I drove past the house just once from a distance and saw the U-Haul truck in the driveway. Watched them carry boxes. Didn't stop. Didn't announce myself. Just observed from 2 blocks away. Then drove home. They moved to Kendall, a rental apartment, small, $1,800 a month instead of free. Marcus heard through courthouse connections that their financial situation had deteriorated badly. Credit cards maxed from attorney fees. No savings. The prestigious lifestyle they'd enjoyed at my expense had evaporated overnight. Over the following days, Logan tried calling. My phone showed number no longer in service. I changed it the day after closing. New number, clean break. He tried email. I closed that address, too. Complete severance. 1 week after closing, I sat in Diane Porter's office. We'd worked together 15 years. She'd handled my wife's estate, various legal matters, my previous will. She knew my history. "Elbert," she said, reviewing my request. "I have to ask, are you absolutely certain about this? Logan is your only child. Sometimes family rifts heal with time." "Diane." I kept my voice level. My son sat silent while his wife threw wine in my face at my own dinner table. He borrowed $25,000 with promises of repayment that never materialized. He lived in my house for 3 years without contributing a single dollar. When I needed him to be a son, he was absent. Why would I reward that? She sighed, nodded. "I understand. Who do you want to designate as beneficiaries?" 2 recipients, the Florida Judicial Veteran Support Fund, $340,000 from my retirement fund, and Ruth Castellano, $280,000 from my investment account. Diane looked up, surprised. "Ruth Castellano from Timeless Treasures. I've met her at charity events." I smiled slightly. "Yes. When everyone else saw me as a resource or an obstacle, she saw me as a person. That matters. It matters very much." Diane's expression softened. "I think that's a beautiful choice. The new will took a week to draft. I reviewed it carefully, approved every clause, signed it in Diane's conference room with 2 paralegals as witnesses. The notary pressed her seal into the paper. The physical impression made it real, irreversible. Logan was legally disinherited. The previous will formally revoked. Meanwhile, Ruth and I spent increasing time together. Not just coffee anymore. Dinners at quiet restaurants, weekend walks along the beach near Coconut Grove, gallery visits where we discussed paintings for hours, discovering we shared similar tastes, preference for landscape over portrait, color over monochrome, honesty over pretension. She told me more about her divorce 10 years ago, her husband's financial betrayal, the brutal legal battle, the years rebuilding her business, and her trust. I shared more about my late wife, the gradual erosion of my relationship with Logan that had started years before Violet, my regret at not seeing it sooner. Late June, Ruth arranged for me to meet her son, David, lunch at a bistro in Coral Gables. He was 40, software engineer, intelligent and warm, protective of his mother, but not hostile. At one point, while Ruth was in the restroom, David leaned forward. "I'm going to be direct. My mother went through something terrible with my father. Took her a decade to rebuild. She's been alone because she's cautious. If you're with her, treat her right. I intend to. She deserves nothing less." He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "Good, because she talks about you constantly. I haven't seen her this alive in years." Mid-July brought an evening that felt suspended outside time. Ruth and I sat on my condo terrace, wine glasses between us, watching the sun paint the ocean in shades of amber and rose. Comfortable silence stretched between us, the kind that only comes when words aren't necessary. Finally, I spoke. "I thought my life was over at 64. That after everything with Logan, I had nothing left except existing, going through motions. But you showed me I was wrong." "No." She turned to face me. "You showed yourself. You stood up. You fought for your dignity. I just had the privilege of watching. You were more than a spectator. Maybe. We helped each other." I stood, held out my hand. She took it. "Rose." We stood close. The sunset behind us. The future uncertain, but somehow less frightening than it had been months ago. I leaned forward. She met me halfway. Our lips touched softly, tentative at first, then more certain. 3 seconds. We pulled back, looked at each other, smiled, then kissed again longer. My hand cooped her face. Her hand rested against my chest. Not desperate, deliberate. Two people who'd earned the right to be careful with their hearts. When we finally separated, she rested her forehead against mine. I should go, she whispered. Early shipment at the shop tomorrow. Have dinner with me tomorrow night somewhere nice. I want to celebrate. Celebrate what? New beginnings. She kissed me once more, quick and soft, then left. I stood alone on the terrace, looking at the darkening ocean, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not just peace, actual happiness. My phone buzzed. Email notification subject line from Logan. I stared at it for a long moment, then placed the phone face down on the table. Tomorrow. I'd read it tomorrow. Tonight was for this feeling, this warmth, this possibility, this life I was building from the ashes of the old one. Early August morning, I sat on my balcony with coffee, scrolling through emails on my tablet. The subject line stopped me. From Logan Cooper, please read. I set down my cup, opened it. The email was long, longer than any communication Logan had sent me in years. I read standing, then sat slowly, read again, then a third time. Dad, I don't know if you'll read this. I understand if you delete it, but I need to write it anyway. These past 3 months have been the hardest of my life. Not just financially, though that's been brutal, but emotionally. Violet and I are barely speaking. She blames me for everything. Maybe she's right. I've started therapy. The therapist asked me when I stopped standing up for myself. I couldn't remember. Maybe I never started. I let Violet control everything. I let her treat you terribly. I sat silent when she threw that wine. I've been a coward. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. But maybe someday, if you're ever willing, we could talk. Just talk. I miss my father. Logan. I walked to Ruth's shop, carrying the tablet like evidence. She looked up from cataloging a collection of vintage clocks, saw my face, immediately stopped working. I handed her the tablet without speaking. She read carefully, then looked up. What do you feel? I thought for a long moment. Relief that he's finally seeing what I saw. And sadness, because recognizing the problem doesn't undo the damage. And freedom, because it's not my job to fix him anymore. No, she said quietly. It's not. He's 38 years old. If he's finally growing up, good. But he needs to do it for himself. Ruth nodded, handed back the tablet. So what will you do? I sat at her desk, opened my phone's email, typed slowly, deleted sentences, retyped. Ruth organized shelves nearby, glancing over occasionally, but not hovering. When I finished, I held the phone toward her. Does this sound right? She read, nodded. I pressed send. Logan, I received your email. I see you're beginning to understand what happened. That's good. That's progress. But I need you to know. I need time. Maybe a lot of time, maybe forever. I don't know yet. What happened changed me fundamentally. I'm no longer the father who allowed himself to be used, who prioritized peace over respect. I'm a person who protects his dignity. If you're truly changing, and I hope you are, do it for yourself, not to regain my approval, not to access my resources. For yourself. Be well, Father. I placed the phone face down on her desk. Ruth crossed to me, wrapped her arms around my shoulders. You handled that perfectly. Then she smiled. Want to take a trip? Get away for a week. We flew to Santa Fe mid-August. The high desert landscape spreading below the plain. Red rocks, vast sky. Space to breathe. We stayed at a small adobe inn with a courtyard filled with hollyhocks and sage. Day spent at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, wandering canyon road galleries, hiking trails with vistas that stretched forever. Evenings at intimate restaurants with green chili and local wine. Nights on the inn's rooftop under stars more visible than any I'd seen in years. One night, lying on woven blankets, the Milky Way stretching overhead, Ruth spoke quietly. You know what I thought my life would be at 62. Quiet, small, the shop routine, TV dinners, bed, lonely but safe. Then you walked into my life. I walked in with a disaster, I said. Betrayal, hurt, furniture that needed extracting from a hostile environment. She laughed. Yes, all of that, and also dignity, strength, honesty. You were fighting for something real, for your own worth. I fell in love with that, with you. I turned to face her. I fell in love with the person who saw me, not my bank account. I need to tell you something. I took her hand. When I changed my will, removing Logan, I designated you as a beneficiary. $280,000. She sat up. Elbert, no. I can't accept. I don't want you thinking I'm with you, for I placed my finger gently on her lips. Stop. It's not about the money. It's about what you represent. You're the only person besides my parents who ever treated me like a human being instead of a resource to exploit. I want you to know you matter. You matter to me more than anyone has in years. Her eyes filled. You matter to me, too. We returned to Florida late August. Life settled into new rhythms. I sold the remaining antiques through Ruth's shop, earning $45,000. Invested the house proceeds, $74 million, into a diversified retirement portfolio with a financial advisor Marcus recommended. I began volunteering at the Legal Aid Society of Miami, offering pro bono consultations to elderly clients. One afternoon, an elderly woman sat across from me, worried expression creasing her face. My grandson keeps calling, she said. Says I should put my house in his name for tax purposes, but something feels wrong. Trust that feeling. I told her. That's a common manipulation tactic. Your house is your security. Never transfer it unless you fully understand and truly want to. But he's family. Family should protect you, not pressure you. Real family earns trust through respect, not manipulation. As she left, thanking me profusely, I felt something I hadn't expected. Purpose. My pain transformed into protection for others. Ruth expanded timeless treasures, hired an assistant, increased inventory. We maintained separate residences. Both valued our independence, but spent 5 or 6 nights a week together. Late August evening, we sat on my condo balcony. Stars emerging above the ocean, comfortable silence between us. Do you ever regret it? Ruth asked quietly. About Logan, how everything turned out. I was silent for a long time, looking at the water. I regret that the son I raised or thought I raised disappeared somewhere along the way. I regret not seeing what was happening sooner. But I don't regret protecting myself. I was a good father, too good. I let them take advantage. I corrected that. And for the first time in years, I sleep through the night. That's not regret, she said. That's wisdom. Maybe they're the same thing. I thought about life's strange mathematics. I'd lost a son, but found myself. Lost a house, but found a home. Not in walls, but in the woman sitting beside me. Lived 64 years, thinking I knew what family meant. Turned out family isn't blood. Family is who respects you when it's inconvenient, who stands with you when it's hard, who sees you, not your resources. Violet was somewhere in Kendall in a rental apartment, probably still considering herself a victim. Logan was there, too, finally growing up, possibly too late for our relationship, but hopefully not too late for himself. And I was here on this balcony, holding the hand of a woman who treated me with dignity. I'd won. Not because I destroyed someone's life, because I'd rebuilt my own. I smiled. Ruth smiled back. We didn't say it aloud, but both knew this was a real happy ending, not a fairy tale. Real where the hero chose himself, protected his dignity, set boundaries, found love not through rescue or drama, but through mutual respect between two people who'd survived betrayal and learned what actually mattered. The ocean moved in darkness below. Stars wheeled overhead. Ruth's hand warm in mine. Justice achieved. Life rebuilt. Peace earned. I'd spent 30 years on the bench delivering verdicts. Now I delivered one for myself. I deserved better, and I'd made it happen. The rest was just living, and that finally was enough. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right. Thank you for watching.